Welcome, everyone. You are at the beginning of Module 10, and we are shifting over to creative nonfiction. We started with poetry, we did 4 weeks there, then we went to short fiction, and we did 4 weeks there, and now we're moving into our final genre for the class, creative nonfiction. Now, before we even get started, I want you to take out a paper and pen and I want you to just brainstorm a little bit to answering this question. I want you to begin by making a list of rules that you associate with writing essays for school. Then I want you to write a short paragraph describing the sort of essay you would like to write if you were given complete freedom to approach a subject from whatever perspective you choose. What rules would you want to break? Would you eliminate the thesis statement at the end of your introductory paragraph or make use of 10 short body paragraphs rather than 3 or 5 substantial ones? How would your new ideal essay be different from the essays you are used to writing? Stop the video, take a minute, and just brainstorm that a little bit. Okay, hopefully you took a second to think about those questions. I wanted to share my answers. For me, I would definitely ditch the thesis sentence notion. I feel like main points can happen anywhere in an essay, and where those main points land kind of depends on the rhythm of the writing and just kind of how things are going within the essay itself. So that's my first thought. My second thought is I would lose any paragraph length rules. I like shorter paragraphs. I like to intersperse them with longer ones, and I like the rhythm that that creates in writing. So paragraphing rules about how long a paragraph should be um, are another set of rules that I would be willing to ditch. Now, what actually is creative nonfiction? It's not your standard academic essay. Creative nonfiction is essays. It is writing essays, but it's not your standard academic type of essay. These essays explore real experiences with creativity. So it's nonfiction, it's true, and it's generally based on the writer's own personal life or personal experiences. The writing is often more fun and engaging than traditional essays as well. So, how do we get from academic essays to this more creative nonfiction type of essays? Now, most students have written many academic essays in their lifetime. I'm sure you have, but creative nonfiction is a different, newer approach where aspects are actually gaining traction on the academic side too. You may see more of the techniques and ideas that we talk about here showing up in your academic essays because professors across the academic spectrum are kind of realizing that some of these techniques make for better engaging writing and more interesting and effective writing. So you'll use some familiar techniques like argument description and even research, but you do it with a creative twist. So it tends to be a lot more interesting and a lot more fun. So, as far as defining creative nonfiction, we're going to call it also literary nonfiction. It kind of blends facts with literary style, and it makes room for personal voice and storytelling. Now, here are some key features of creative nonfiction. These are from The Fourth Genre, a book by Ruth Steinberg, and you'll see a reference to this in your text. Um, Key features: personal presence of the writer. You know that the writer's there. You know that you're reading the writer's thoughts. Self-discovery, flexibility of form, veracity or truthfulness, and independence and imagination. So these essays, creative nonfiction essays, are often ones that are some of the most imaginative types of essays that you will read or that you will write. Let's talk a little bit about personal presence. What does that mean? It means that the writer, the I, is always present in the essay. Even in essays that are about less personal topics, you can feel that the writer is there. You can feel that the writer is behind it. Writers insert themselves, sharing perspective and sometimes revealing much about themselves and about the way that they think. Now, what about self-discovery and reflection? How do we see that? We see that because authors learn quite often in these essays as they write. It's kind of a writing as discovery experience. There's no need to start out writing an essay knowing everything before you even put pen to paper. This is a discovery process when you're writing creative nonfiction. These types of essays invite reflection, speculation, and it's okay to be tentative. It's okay to be learning about something. What about flexibility of form and literary approach? You'll see that creative nonfiction uses literary language. It often borrows from fiction and poetry in the style of the writing itself. Um, it can use both traditional or experimental structures. So some essays will be very linear. They just proceed from beginning to end without any type of fragment or nonlinear structures. But on the other hand, some people will be very experimental and they will give you nonlinear or more fragmented structures. Now, that may remind you of the fiction writing that we did. We did some very linear structures, but then we also experimented with some nonlinear or fragmented structures as well. These types of creative nonfiction essays are willing to wander, digress, and play with format. So, again, that harkens back to our conversation at the beginning of the video about what rules would you break if you could, because here you can. Telling the truth or veracity, that's really important in creative nonfiction because it's nonfiction. This is truth telling. Now, whose truth is it? That's up to you to determine. Usually it's the writer's truth because that's what they have the most access to. But creative nonfiction must stay rooted in fact and real experience. Liberties such as omitting details to protect privacy or narrative pace are allowed. It's okay to leave some things out because you still have to think about what's necessary and what's not necessary, or whether certain parts of the story are yours to tell, whether you need to maintain people's privacy, but you never want to leave things out at the expense of honesty. Um, Honesty is really paramount in creative nonfiction. Independence and imagination. Writers of creative nonfiction are often very passionate. They're not just fulfilling assignments, they care about the subject that they're writing about, and they'll explore that subject from multiple angles. That's another thing that makes it very, very interesting. When you're writing creative nonfiction, you want to choose topics that you want to investigate, either from your own experience or if there's something that you want to learn more about. This is a great place to do it. This is a genre where you aren't necessarily forced to write about a topic, but you get to choose what you're really interested in. So, what do we do to get started? We get started by choosing subjects that are meaningful to us. You embrace the freedom. You love the opportunity to be personally present in your essays. These aren't cold academic, objective pieces of information. These are places of personal presence. These are essays where you are there and you are discovering uh, new things that you wanted to learn or more things about your own creativity. So be truthful, be imaginative, and above all, have fun with this. This creative nonfiction can be a little bit different for people. It's not a genre that they realize they've been reading. But when I flip to the next screen, you're probably going to have some light bulbs come on because when we write this week, the first type of creative nonfiction that we're going to write is actually one of the most common that you see out in the world. And you've probably read this type not very within the near past, I would guess, if you're at all of a reader. I've written, not written, I've read two books that fall into this genre we're going to talk about. Um, this genre of creative nonfiction. When I pop to the next screen, I've read two within the last 3 weeks. And here it is. Memoir. So now, is it a little clearer what creative nonfiction can be? Because memoir is the most popular subcategory, I would say, of creative nonfiction that we see out in the publishing world now. That is, there have been some very, prolific, visible people whose memoirs have come out recently. And I think you can always say that because memoirs are always coming out because they always sell. So let's read through this together. The most accessible form of nonfiction is probably memoir, stories from our own lives that are written about reflectively. Our readers trust that these stories are true. However, writing memoir can be painful because it requires deep honesty both with ourselves and with our readers. Deep honesty can bring deep pain. Writer James Brown says this about memoir in his essay, An Exercise in Writing Memoir, From Naming the World and Other Exercises for the Creative Writer. In memoir, you're obliged to tell the truth, both good and bad truths, and in doing so, you must be honest with yourself and the audience. You'll worry about what others will think of you. You'll worry that you'll be judged, and you will be because that's what people do to each other. But you have to accept this or you can't proceed. Our lives are inextricably linked to the lives of others, particularly those we love most, and there is an excellent chance that they won't exactly appreciate how you portray them in your work. But those are the costs. Those are the consequences. So be tough. Take some chances. Know going in that you can't write well and honesty about yourself in and others with impunity, and you'll be off to a good start. Now, that little clip is part of the writing assignment that you will do this week. So go ahead and click next below and you'll get going on that. I look forward to seeing what you come up with.